Let's see. Oh wait, give me 1 second. One second. We just started. I forgot to press the record button, so we just lost all of that. No. Oh well.
Oh shit. Okay.
For all of you guys who didn't listen to that part because you weren't one of us. Basically, I messaged them to add my podcast, my side project, to their app, and then Diego was saying that like his co-founder was like, "Oh, we already added him," and they're like, "What? What'd you say?"
Yeah, so I just saw like this podcast and I didn't remember like personally adding, and like my co-founder like added because some friend like recommended to him and he started like beginning to listening to this podcast. And I saw, oh, like this guy came to the app and he talked about like he has a podcast, and it was literally like the host of the podcast that my co-founder like just added. So like after like we start like talking to each other, we realized that like my co-founder plays soccer with his co-host, which is like insane.
Yeah, with Tahir. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So, well, that's awesome. I liked your app because it's kind of all the podcasts that I listen to. So I guess we'll explain to the audience that like what your app does is basically you take all of like the Silicon Valley podcasts and just put them in one app.
Yeah. So that's how we started. And like a lot of people already gathering value, like coming to this place where you have like all the podcasts that like is interesting to you. But actually our vision is like, while you listen to the app, we're going to start learning about what type of podcast you like and start recommending podcasts like YouTube does with videos. So, for example, if you start listening to podcasts about fintech, we're going to start to give a lot of recommendations about fintech. If you start listening about podcasts about sales, we're going to start to give a lot of recommendations about sales. So our vision is to give you recommendations so you don't even ever need to look for content anymore. The app is smart enough to recommend a podcast.
Feedcast. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab a wire and then so I can show the audience. I forgot that Zoom makes it easy to show off the phone, so I might as well just show off the app and go through it with you.
Nice.
Feedcast. Share. Cool. So this is the app, Feedcast.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, like while we start learning about what you like, we give you like daily recommendations, so you don't even need to search for podcasts anymore. And we also have like a curated collection of the podcasts that like founders are listening the most. So we actually talk with a bunch of founders to understand like, hey, like what type of podcast you're listening to. So we aggregate like the top podcasts for founders. We put everything here in a curated list. And while you start listening to podcasts, we start giving you daily recommendations. So every day you have like a new content based on the type of podcast you're listening to. So you can discover way more interesting content than what you can do with other podcast apps.
Yeah, because the top two, well, three on this app, including my own, but How I Built This, Master to Scale, like those are two of my favorites. I like The Pitch. Yeah, there's a lot of them. I listened to Startup Podcast, this one.
Yeah, I love this one. It's pretty cool.
And I'm actually surprised that it's one problem that I have with podcasts, and I hope you guys can solve this or someone can solve this, is it's so hard to know like who's listening to my podcast. You know, my friend Tahir like was talking to a friend at his work and he was like, "Oh, I have this." He said that a friend one of his coworkers told someone else that he knew Taher. And he's like, oh, you know Taher? Like he does that podcast. And then I was like, what? Like it's just weird seeing other people know about what we do, but I don't know who is listening, you know? So they know about me. I don't know about them.
I see. Interesting. And what type of information would you like to know about your audience?
Well, one, comment sections don't exist for podcasts. I think that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
So for like first time I started, actually wasn't about podcast recommendations at all. So my first idea was that exactly what you're describing right now. There's literally no way for you to engage with the podcasters. So let's say in your podcast, you're talking about like a topic. Let's say you're talking about fundraise, and I have a question about fundraise. There's literally like no way to ask a question because there's like not comments in the top podcast apps. So the top ones are Apple and Spotify. So I said, okay, I'm gonna build an app where people can like actually message the podcasters or comment in their podcast. But it turns out there's actually a bunch of like smaller players already that already have a comment section. Like Breaker is one example. But the problem for podcasters is that like the top ones don't have any way to comment in the podcast, and the smaller ones there's like a bunch of smaller apps. There's like I don't know, like 10 apps where you can go and comment. So podcasters find they take so much time to go to all of these like 10 apps and see like, oh, someone commented this app, and then you need to go to these 10 other apps to discover who commented. So yeah, so there's a solution, but it's not good for podcasters at all because they need to go to the same places. So anyway, like we end up pivoting and not working in common because there's already like some smaller players with the solution, although it's still not a good solution for the podcasters because they need to go to so many apps to see like the comments. It's not like YouTube where you have like a centralized place to see. So we end up pivoting and focusing recommendation. But initially, that's what like that was the first thing. I said, oh, there's no way that I can interact with podcasters. But yeah, well, what else? Like I don't know. Do you have like other suggestions? That's something that you don't like about podcast industry?
Yeah, asking questions from the audience to the person. It's just forming a community is so much harder for podcasting compared to any other type of media. Like there's, articles. It's kind of actually hard for people who write articles to have a community. I don't know. I just feel like YouTube is a great place to form communities because there's the comment section. People can follow up. They can subscribe. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of interaction between, and I've seen people like PewDiePie. He uses like Reddit, and then he has people submit content, and then he goes over it. So that's kind of like what I'm doing right now with sideprojects.net. It's like when I found Sakun working on it, I was like, oh, I instantly wanted to join it because I was like, and work with him on it because having a platform to interact with your audience is awesome,
Yeah, and you also learn what type of content your audience wants, and that's actually how a lot of content is created on YouTube. Like the YouTuber just read the comment section, and say, oh, people are interested to know about that, and that's how they create a video. But yeah, like I agree with you. We plan to bring comment section, but I think the problem is much bigger because the big players don't have a comment section. So
yeah, the way I would probably set it up on your app, and this is just my like perspective, is I would have like not have it for people talking to the hosts of the shows necessarily, because like you said, there's that problem that you just mentioned of it being too widespread, but throughout all the different commenting apps. But I would just have it so that people could comment with each other,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then maybe if like you broke it down into like 3 takeaways, and then there's like takeaway 1, and then like its own comment section, takeaway 2, and its own comment section, and then takeaway 3. And then so it's like people could be like, oh, that part where Reid Hoffman talked about blah, 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 like, and then he talked about how to scale your startup, whatever. And then there's like another point, and then people can just like discuss under a certain top thread of topic or something.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting, especially because now we're just doing for a specific niche. So we can actually do topics specifically for startups and customize like these takeaways. So actually, yeah, we can definitely test that. It shouldn't be hard at all, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
We're looking for ideas. So it's awesome when someone like comes with an idea. And yeah, we'd love to get more ideas.
Yeah. It's also kind of like a trend of like, I feel like digesting content for other people is a thing that apps are doing. Like, there's I see like ads for like 6 different apps of like people doing those apps where they give you the key takeaways from popular books so you don't have to read them.
Yeah. Like Blink is one of the
The
startups
biggest
that do
thing.
that. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah. I think we should try. Yeah. Like
Yeah, why
I
not?
think it's a good idea. Yeah, I think it's great.
What how did you guys meet and what do you guys do on the project?
Yeah, sure. So I have a co-founder. He's the CTO. So we know each other for 2 years. So my roommate. I used to live in London. So my roommate in London studied with him back in undergrad. So whenever I moved to Silicon Valley, like the guy created a group chat, said, "Hey, you guys should meet." So we met each other and we became really good friends. Now he's my best friend. So he was like, I want to start a startup. He also want to start something. He's my best friend and we have like complementary skills. So it was like a perfect match. It was
Nice.
like, yeah.
What do you do and what's his name?
Rafael.
So what do you do, Diego, and what does Rafael do?
Yeah. So my whole career working product. I'm an engineer, but I work in product my whole career. He's an engineer. His whole career he worked infrastructure. So basically, he's handling infrastructure, and actually he's also really good at design. So he's handling infrastructure and design. I'm handling product and marketing. So that's how we're splitting.
It's a very good looking app. I mean, it's very simple. I like the simple apps for sure.
Yeah. So like initially I started app by myself. He joined like a little bit after, and before he joined, the UI was so bad. So fortunately, he's like so much better than I am about design. So he actually redesigned the whole app. What you're seeing is already redesigned. Before was like so bad the UI. So yeah, we're like,
what did it look like before?
oh, it was like whatever you imagine like an engineer building an app. So yeah, that was like my version before was like, yeah.
So instead of gray lines, can you see my mouse?
Yeah,
Instead of gray lines, you do like hard black lines. You do all black text.
So I had like fonts in bold, like things really big, like everywhere, like didn't make any sense. And yeah, like I just don't. Yeah, I'm not good at design at all.
So he added the hierarchy.
Yeah, and he actually, even though like it was kind of weird, his whole career he worked like as like infrastructure. So usually, if you don't imagine someone in infrastructure being good at design as well, but he actually really liked design. Whenever he was in university, he took some classes about design. So he was actually really interested about design. So he kept reading about how to like make that looks good, and he's the one like handling 100% design.
Nice. And what does this chat thing do?
Yeah, so we create this for two purposes. One, to get feedback, and the other one, you can come here and describe what type of podcast you like, and you can be very specific. So, for example, I'm looking for a podcast about like someone who's just starting a fintech company, and whenever I learn about what type of podcast you like, I'm gonna recommend very, very specific podcasts about that. So I'm actually gonna go manually research a lot of podcasts about this specific niche that you want, and start giving a lot of recommendations.
It's kind of like that thing they say in like Y Combinator, like do things that don't scale or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can literally type any type of podcast recommendation you want. We're gonna research manually, and we're gonna start giving a lot of recommendations about this specific theme that you want.
I really like that you have the bubble there, because it's like I love it when apps is it intercom. You've heard of that thing intercom? It's like that little thing in the corner, and then they always have like that little chat bubble. I love it when sites do that, because it just means that the site's all about customer service.
Yeah. We thought about using intercom, but for startups, it's actually pretty expensive. So we end up using TalkTo, which is like a free
What is it?
version of intercom. Uh, it's written here at the bottom. So we are by TalkTo. So this is like a competitor of intercom,
Ah,
and it's really good for who's getting started. So I think intercom is like $80 per month. So if you're a startup, it's actually a considerable amount of money. But this is like for free. So if anyone is starting something, don't want to spend much money, like use TalkTo. Like you can do this for free, whatever Intercom is doing.
that's very cool. That's like a great tip. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people underestimate like the needs of the users and like really helping them like the way I see sideprojects.net is like it's just another way of like meeting people and like it, if you go to a site and it's just like okay maybe there's some content there but then there's like but that's it then I might as well just go to any old list on the internet and until like there's something that kind of like uh yeah
It's not
something
like special. It doesn't make you special, right? It's
yeah
just
it
like
doesn't
a
make it
random one.
special. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I totally agree with you. Like, we, even though we're both engineers and we believe they're literally the most dangerous thing for us, since we're very comfortable coding, is just like close our eyes and start coding an entire roadmap. We really force ourselves to not do that. So we really force ourselves to like be talk with customers like almost every day, talk with a new customer, learn like what's their pain points, how can we make their life better,
Mhm.
and yeah, we're really trying to not like be blind just coding the whole day, and yeah, we're trying to learn as much as possible with customers.
Nice. Well,
But
what kind of
yeah,
like things? What kind of feedback are you looking for? Like maybe from our community, if you
yeah,
be giving you any great feedback.
yeah, sure. So like recommendations, there's a lot of type of recommendations. So we start this with an idea about recommendations, but it turns out there's so many ways that you can recommend stuff. Let me give an example. So if you listen to a podcast about an interview with someone, so the person who is listening to that might be interested in other podcasts about interviews. The person might be interested in other podcasts where the specific guy who was interviewed was also interviewing another podcast. Or maybe the person is not necessarily looking for the person who was interviewed, but more about like, oh, a startup about the industry that this guy works on. So there's so many different signals that people, whenever they think about recommendations. So right now, we're just trying to learn what type of podcast people are interested in. And yeah, like we love to understand more about like, okay, like tell me more about like what type of podcast you're releasing right now and what type of podcast you want. So we can learn to get those signals and make our algorithm better.
Oh, because you're
So
creating some sort of like recommendation algorithm.
yes, exactly. And right now we're literally trying to understand like what type of signals create good recommendations. So is it the host? Is it the content? Is it right now we just have recommendations for podcast about startups.
Mhm.
So is it like the the industry that the startup is? So we're just trying to learn what are the signals that are important for someone who listens to podcasts, and learning about this, we can tweak the algorithm, make the algorithm better.
What about I so will the algorithm you're using use something like NLU, like to like figure out what they're saying when they text it and then have something automatically spit back an answer?
Yeah, so that's one way we plan to do that. We're not doing this yet. So right now, we take in consideration the title, for example, or the title of the podcast, or who was the like interview at the podcast, and also on top of that, we do a lot of things manually as well. As you mentioned, like that's the way Y Combinator like recommends, and we're like a lot of recommendations. Actually, we are big fans of podcasts, so we see someone listening to this specific topic, like, oh, I actually listened to another day podcast about that. So I go there manually and do the recommendation. So it's a
Ah,
mix of like algorithm and actually we love podcasts about startups, so we go there and manually recommend podcasts about startups.
what if you had like a something like a Stack Overflow kind of interface on a tab, and it was like uh, people ask their questions, and then the recommendations underneath that question get like upvoted or something.
Interesting. That
You
that
know,
could be interesting.
because you
A
can
behavior,
crowdsource the answers.
yeah, a behavior that I noticed that's actually happening a lot. A lot of people are going to Reddit or Twitter and like, hey, can someone give you a podcast about recommendation about X? And that's actually a behavior that's happening a lot. If you go to Reddit, a lot of people are like posting on Reddit. Twitter is the same thing, and
Yeah.
that's funny because that's how we get customers. So we go to those threads, we give a bunch of recommendations to people, and then we say, oh, by the way, if you want more recommendations, check it out this app, and we get customers doing that. So yeah,
Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit about that because I think that's an important part of of marketing that a lot of people don't do. Like I feel like marketing is about offering help to people and like for example on sideprojects.net, Sakun just released a Medium article, which he's really good at writing those, where he says like this is how you like get feedback, where you can go to get feedback on your products. And he lists all
hmm
of our competitors on a list, and including our name, you know. And I feel like when good marketing is like when you're trying to help the people, the audience. Bad marketing is when you're just trying to funnel them only into your thing and not look anywhere else. And like, so I think it's like cool that you just are trying to be helpful out there on the internet. And like,
yeah, yeah. So like to be completely honest, like before working on this, I understood not much about marketing at all. So
mhm,
like I'm still learning, and yeah, like so basically what we're doing, you're literally just every single week we just try these five different strategies. Probably four of them is gonna be like no one's gonna come through this strategy. One of them is gonna succeed. And right now the one that's actually bringing a lot of people, two things. One, helping people like on Reddit and Twitter. That's actually a lot of people coming from there. And the other one, like we just like since we're focusing on a very specific niche, which is like podcast recommendations about podcasts of startups. We go to events like meetups or conference. We talk with founders, and we are not even trying to sell to them. We just describe what we're doing. And if someone who like love podcasts said, "Hey, can I check it out?" I said, "Yeah, of course." So these are the two main strategies, but like we right now we're just trying a bunch of different marketing strategies. We're just trying to figure out what's the best channel. But helping people definitely this is like the source of number one way that we're bringing people to the app.
yeah, yeah. For us, like what we recently discovered is if I do product reviews, like I just launched it like a little video the other day of like me just reviewing people's websites and giving them feedback. And then in this, I forgot, in some tech thing, I forgot what it was. Maybe it was Reid Hoffman or something. They say that you should you should have a single player mode in every single app, meaning that it's like when people use your product, it should be useful to uh, one person without needing the rest of the community. Like Instagram, when it first launched, was not just useful for was useful just as a photo editing app, and then it became a sharing app. You know, so like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think if I could help people and give feedback and give people ideas on their products, like they'll come to sideprojects.net just for the sake of getting help, and then maybe hopefully they will also engage in the community.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're still learning like about all of like the right way of doing marketing, but like I strongly believe helping people is like one of the biggest levers that you can have to actually get customers.
Yeah. Well, what's next? What's like the future? What's next? Are you guys raising money? You guys
Yeah, so right now in the process of raising money, and the reason why, like how we're planning to use this money. So right now, as I mentioned, we just have podcast recommendations about a single category. It's very, very small niche with podcasts about startups. We want to have recommendations about like multiple categories, and at some point, like it's not about category. You can literally come here. I'm going to give you a recommendation about anything. So right now, we're almost closing the seed round, and we're planning to use this money to go from one category to multiple categories.
interesting. And then
Yeah,
like, but first you're gonna dominate this category.
yeah. So right now, our main goal, since it's like a very very small niche, there's not. I mean, if you look at the numbers, there's not that many founders in the world like listening to podcasts. Compare relative to the rest of the market. So we enter for podcast about startups to learn a lot about what people care about. We plan to like get like a good amount of users there, and then go to other categories.
I think they're the
But
best to start off with because people who listen to all the podcasts on your app right now are like the first movers as far as like, who the users are. Like I feel like anyone who listens to those are always trying out products,
yeah, something is good. But again, we started doing that. Oh, even though it ends up being a good strategy. But to be honest, the reason why I started doing that is because I'm a founder. My co-founder is also a founder, and we both listen to podcasts about startups, and we struggle to find podcasts about startups. So that's literally the reason. So we
Yeah.
never thought about, oh, these people are easier to convince and to start.
Oh.
It was just like, yeah, I mean, it turned out to be good, but literally there was not much thought there. But as you mentioned, that's actually a good category to start. But the reason number one why we end up going for this niche is because we are like the customers, we're the target. So we can like, I can look at the product and give feedback because I'm the user. So that's literally the reason why we start with this category.
How many users do you have?
So right now, last week we just surpassed 3,000 users.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like we're growing, we're learning a lot, and we're like at a point where we really need to like make things more scalable. As I mentioned, a lot of our stuff is manually. It's
Yeah.
like and like it got to a point where if you keep doing things manually, the quality of recommendation is gonna go downhill because basically you don't have enough time to give like a lot of manual recommendations. And we're getting very close to this point. We're trying to automate as much as possible of the manual stuff. And hopefully now that we're raising money, we can actually like get more people on the team and start like scaling and bring more categories. So we're really excited about what's coming next.
Yeah, because that definitely solves the problem of like discovery. And also I think starting from everyone tries to like automate first, but I think doing the hard work of manual is like something no one else just really wants to do. And so I think that's like what makes your thing cool because it's like you're doing the hard work and then you're going to automate it. So it's kind of like people go to it and then you can't really go to any other app and find a podcast recommendation that actually gives you like real people answers.
Yeah, like because like you're not gonna go to Spotify and literally type in a chat box, hey, I want recommendation about this very specific thing. Because like they have millions of users, so there's no way Spotify is gonna do that. So right now we can do that. So that's one reason why it really helped us to grow initially.
Well, that's cool. Well, Diego, it's
Yeah.
great talking to you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. How can people follow up with you?
Yeah, so if you're someone who listens to podcasts about startups, and you can go to feedcast.me. So that's our landing page, and
What is it?
over there, feedcast.me.
Let's see. Feedcast.me. There we go.
Yes. Yeah. So over here, you have a link for the App Store, for the Google Play Store, and as like we discussed, like if you have a specific podcast that you want more recommendations, there's a chat tab inside that. So just message us, and we'd love to give you very customized podcast recommendations and help you to find more interesting content.
Great. Well, yeah, Diego, it was great talking to you, and I definitely looking forward to see all the updates on your site. Yeah, whenever you do next update or whatever it is, post it on side projects and.
Yeah. We just we created last week our first post, and we're planning like to post more as like we achieve more milestones. So yeah, like definitely gonna be posting there.
Great. All right, I'm gonna end the interview. Let's see. Oh yeah, thank you. Let's see. 1 second. Gotta stop.